Hey everybody, it's Megan Ritz with Classic Cakes here, and today on Tutorial Tuesday we are going to work on icing and stacking cakes. I have a couple of 3-tier cakes that we're going to do so that we can do them together. I already have one iced and in the freezer, and then I'll show you guys the whole process from beginning to end. So thank you so much for joining tonight. Say hi when you jump on, tell me where you're from. I love seeing, let me see if I can see the comments. I love seeing where you guys are located and where you're watching from. I also just want to share a couple housekeeping things with you guys tonight. Tomorrow is Wednesday. That means half price cakes here at Classic Cakes. So stop in anytime 11 to 4. First come, first serve. Our case full of already decorated cakes have several that go half price, and we can write on those with a message for you. But it's a great way, if you've never been to Classic Cakes before, to try out one of our cakes and let us know how you like it. Also, for placing orders, you can send an email to cake@classiccakescarmel.com. We are booking up very far in advance right now. We are almost 3 weeks out right now. So if you need an order for July, be sure to send us an email and get that order on the books so that we can save that date for you. One last request from you guys, if you could take a moment after our video and jump over to Google and leave us a review. We are trying to increase the number of reviews that we have on there, and I'd love to know how you feel about the videos. So awesome, we're going to dive right in. I have a 3-tier cake here, and what we're going to do is I have the cakes already turned out of the cake pans, and we are going to, let me raise this so you can see it better. We're just going to make this cake really high. There we go. What we're going to do is we're going to take these cakes, we're going to ice them with an angled spatula design, and then we are going to put support in them and stack them up. So we will have a 3-tier cake here. What we want to talk about is the structural support. We want to make sure that our cakes are even and straight before we ice them. You can correct some of that with icing your cake, but it is a lot more difficult. So if you have like a wonky cake, you can always trim it a little bit, make sure that it's flat, make sure that it's centered on your board, because once you start icing the cake, all of that becomes a little bit more difficult. So icing cakes, I like to clean up my board, make sure we're perfectly centered. And then we want to talk a little bit about summertime and what it does to cakes. Hey Laura, thanks for dropping by. So I like to use a coupler on one of our just standard bags. So this is the bolt that goes with the nut when you put a tip on the bag. So I just use this coupler, and then we are going to just ice in the crack down here. And you want to do this to prevent air bubbles, air pockets in your cake, especially in the summertime when cakes get hot. When it's humid and hot, air bubbles are a really big problem. It's a very common problem. So what happens is when you ice the cake, air gets trapped in the cake, and then when it gets warm, it expands, and then it creates a pocket, and it actually can push that buttercream off away from the side of the cake and cause the icing to fall off the side of the cake. You can have a nice big, like it looks like almost a blister on the side of the cake. Same with fondant. So the best way to do that is to create these dams here to minimize the amount of air that can be trapped in the cake. But sometimes there's nothing you can do. It happens to every baker, every cake decorator at some point. The best thing that you can do is catch it before your customer sees it and fix it. So I have our bag here. We'll talk about those in a second. I've got a smoother here that we're going to smooth the sides of the cake with. And I've got a spatula that we're going to use to ice the cake. Any kind of spatula that you use is fine. They have straight ones like this, they have angled ones, they have small ones. It does not matter. Whatever you're comfortable with is totally fine. I like, actually go back and forth a little bit, but I like the non-angled, the straight, larger ones. I feel like I have more surface area with my cake when I use these. And to ice the cake, we're just going to drop some globs of icing on top. More than you'll need. And what you'll do is just like peanut butter, smooth it out to the edges. So you don't want to pull straight up away from the cake or you'll suction crumbs up through the buttercream. So you want to very carefully smooth back and forth. And here at Classic Cakes we use a American style buttercream. It's non-crusting. So it is just 4 ingredients: high ratio shortening, real butter, vanilla, and powdered sugar. And that makes a nice creamy base. It's also very smooth, so we can get a nice smooth icing on our cake so it actually looks like fondant, but we can also do a lot with that. So there's no liquid in it, which makes it non-crusting, so it's very forgiving as well. So we can redo something, we can scrape it. It's just a very forgiving icing. So I got my top ice. Let me move this so you guys can see a little bit better. Now we're going to do the sides. And you want to kind of smack the icing on so it sticks really well. And we're just going to smear a little bit, and then the next batch we're going to put on top of that buttercream. The buttercream sticks to buttercream better than it sticks to the cake, so you don't have to worry about falling off. We're just going to go around and ice these guys. Let's see. Diane, thank you very much. That's very kind. We do a lot of cakes here, and I've been decorating cakes for almost 12 years now. All right, so just going around little bit by little bit. I'm not worried if I don't get all the way to the bottom. I can go back over it. And we just want to kind of smooth it. We're not worried about it being pretty. We just don't want to have very uneven icing. It makes it easier when we go back around. And I'll take a little bit more for the bottom. If you see crumbs on your board or on your turntable, you want to grab those and get rid of them. Those crumbs are going to end up right in your icing. So we're almost around, and then I'm just going to do a quick pass. Again, we're not worried about making it pretty or perfect. We just want to make our edges somewhat straight. So I'm going to take my spatula and I'm just going to clean up the board, taking that excess icing out of the way, and then I'm going to go straight up and down. And what we're going to do is we're going to see those spots that are thinner, like right here. We have a thinner spot, so we can even that out. There's no rule to how many times you can turn your cake around or pass through or go back and fix something. It is a cake. You can play with it as much as you need to make it look right. So we're just going to go around and pull the icing off the top so that it's level. Again, we're not worried about being pretty right now. We just want to get rid of that excess icing. So we're going to do an angled spatula design. We have a display cake out front with this design. We call her Julia. And so I'm going to show you guys what that design looks like. Let's see. Karen, hi. All right, she says, love the tutorials, missed the first part. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I love getting to share this with you guys and just getting to connect with everybody online a little bit. Okay, so for the angle design, there's a very popular design that's called spatula marks, or at least that's what we call it here. And all you do, let's see if I can do it on this side, is you go around the cake with your spatula and do a very light indentation. So this, we'll call this a messy version of it because I'm doing it on the wrong side of the cake. So this is a super easy design. If your cake is relatively evenly iced, that's all you need. And you can go around and do this. And the easy thing about this is I'm not moving my spatula at all. I'm just turning the cake. So, and then we can do this top one. So super easy spatula design. What we're gonna do with this cake, however, is we're gonna do an angled design. So it requires a little bit more movement from the spatula. So what I'm gonna do is just clean this up a little bit. I feel like I'm moving this camera. Hold on a second, guys. There we go. My table wiggles, and every time it wiggles, I feel like I'm moving that camera on you guys. Okay, so we're just gonna really quick fix this cake up here. Okay, so what we're gonna do for the spatula, the angled marks, is I'm gonna go from the bottom and turn it to the top. So I'm going on an angle. Let me see if I can get this in a better view for you guys. So just really lightly. And then I'm gonna go back and do the next one. And I wanna carry it up off the cake a little bit so that I get that design all the way to the top. Are you guys seeing that? Throw me some hearts if it's in your view, if you can see this design well, how I'm doing it. Need to see those hearts. All right, this is, let's see if that's better. Love it, thank you guys. All right, so it's not as neat as I would like it. I might have to do this in a different way. It's very difficult decorating on the back side of the cake like this. But we have these nice wide spatula marks. Add an angle. Let's see if my angle is changing. I feel like I'm getting too perpendicular. So I start off with a nice angle here, and then it slowly turns and gets more upright. So I'm gonna scrape that and we're gonna fix that. And I might just come over to the other side of the table so that I can do this right. I wanna make sure that it looks beautiful, but I also wanna make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So what kind of cakes are you guys working on? Do we have a lot of decorators or just people who like to watch decorating? Tell me what you guys are up to. All right, I'm gonna come over to the other side. I'm gonna join you guys over here. Move these cakes. Okay, so we're gonna start an angle and go up. That angle's too extreme. We can fix it. There we go. I don't like that one either. All right, one more shot. We got this. So this is part of cake decorating. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it just isn't feeling right. Sometimes my scroll comes out too big. Sometimes I get crumbs in my icing. There we go, I like that. So that's the great thing about cake is, one, it's just cake, and two, I can always redo it. I can play with it. There we go. So really, it doesn't matter. This is a rough design. We're gonna play with our angles, but I want it to be intentional and even. I have a bad habit today. All right, I lied. We're gonna do this one more time. Does this make you guys feel like you can do this too? It really is easy, I swear. All right, you guys, I'm feeling it. Are you feeling it? I'm feeling it. All right, I haven't taken the plunge to decorate any more than cupcakes for my daughter's birthday, Emily. Piped carrots on carrot cupcakes, super cute. Yes, we have tons of videos on here. I love it, you guys. Home decorators, decorate for your family. Getting ready to do graduation cakes, that's amazing. You guys, this is awesome. Okay. I love it. I hope I inspire you guys to try different designs and play and have fun, learn new things, try new things. Alright, there we go. I don't know why I wanted to keep changing that angle. So we're just going to go around the cake and keep the same angle, which has been my struggle here. I really want to make these straight up and down. Decorating in silence. I need music sometimes. Talking to myself is hard. I wish I could hear you guys. Would you guys be interested if we did like a Zoom like class where you guys had like your ingredient list ahead of time and knew what you needed? And all right, so we have our angles. They're beautiful. It's simple. It really is not as complicated as I made it look. And then we're just going to flatten the top. Try and keep my armpit away from you guys. Let's see. If we did a Zoom, then I could totally like offer feedback and critique, and it wouldn't be the same as an in-person class, but it would be more personal, and I think that could be fun. It would take longer than an hour, like it would have to be a couple hours depending on the cake, but it could be very fun. Okay, so we have one tier. So whenever I finish my bottom tier, this is my bottom tier. You can tell because I have this board here. This board sticks out. If I have my other tiers, the board will be the same size as the cake. So see this guy? Board is the same size as the cake. That way when you ice your cake, your board is hidden. Little tricks. And you can buy, so supplies, Amazon of course you guys. If you are local to Indianapolis, Miss B's is my #1 favorite place to stop. They are doing their bakery, their building. They took the opportunity during the shutdown to redo some stuff and clean and organize, and I cannot wait to go see this place because the owner and that team there is amazing, and I'm sure they have all kinds of great ideas. So I just wiped clean the board, so any smearing and gross stuff that I had on there. Let's see. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this guy in the freezer. I'm going to ice the other ones. Just going to pop it in there real quick. It's right here. And we're going to ice the next one. I'm going to go back to the other side of the table while I do this because otherwise my armpit will be in your face. And nobody wants that. Even on Facebook Live. Okay, so we have a board that's the same size as the cake. This means it's one of the higher tiers, right? All of them are going to be the same. This guy, board the same size as the cake. That way when you ice it, the board disappears. It acts as your structural support for your cake, but it's not in the way and ugly. And I'll show you guys all of that stuff. So I just have a mess board. It's just an old board. We're going to take a super tiny little smear of icing that acts as glue. We'll put that on here. So when I ice the cake, I don't make a giant mess. And then we can pop it off of that to stack it on the cake. So I'm nice and centered and beautiful. Feeling centered. We can go ahead and ice this guy. And then do my spatula marks again. Much quicker this time because I figured out my angle. Thank you. Thank you guys for your patience. I mean, let's be honest, I love when everything works out perfectly and I look like I know what I'm doing. But it is nice to be able to share the struggle with you guys, because I talk to a lot of decorators who get frustrated because they're not where they want to be. And honestly, you're never done learning. A good decorator is never going to be done learning. So you're just going to keep practicing and keep trying new things And when you mess stuff up, it's just cake. All right, let's see. I got some questions here. I love Miss B's. Yes. Yes, freezer. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, we don't use our freezer to store our cakes because it dries out your cake, but we will pop them in there for 15 minutes, let the icing get nice and hard, so that when you go to stack them, you don't make marks all over your cake. All right, it makes it a lot easier and nicer. So if you are at home, before you go shopping and fill in that freezer, leave some room for your tiers. If you don't have room in your freezer, you can put it in the refrigerator. It just takes a lot longer, so I'd maybe let them sit in there an hour or so. But the butter in your icing is gonna get hard, and then you can actually pick up and touch that cake without messing it up. So we're gonna ice this guy. Same way. What kind of struggles do you guys have icing cakes? Talk to me, let's do some troubleshooting while I'm doing this. What struggles do you have? Because really, once we start stacking these cakes, that's easy and fast, so we got some extra time tonight, so I can help you guys. Seeing struggles inspires me to keep trying. I love it, yes. I feel the same way. It makes it more real. Like when I see a decorator that inspires me struggle, it makes me feel like I'm a little bit closer to where I wanted to be, right? I don't have to be perfect to be an awesome decorator or to make something turn out awesome. Got a little crumb in here, we'll get rid of you. No crumbs in my cake. All right. Make sure my sides are iced even. Gonna clean up that board. Take some of the icing off the top, just at a 90-degree angle. Again, real rough, not worried about it being perfect. Alright, let's do some spatula marks on this guy. Let's see if I can do it on this side. I like to hold the spatula like this and just let the cake kind of glide. I need to smooth my sides. I want my sides to be a little bit neater than this. There we go. So you want your sides to not have too much excess icing on them. Smooth icing. Yes, buttercream on top of buttercream. It sticks better to buttercream than it does your cake, so it doesn't like want to roll off as much, and you don't get as many crumbs. My reason for not doing a crumb coat, there's no reason not to do a crumb coat. There's nothing wrong with doing a crumb coat. I just have done it enough to where I don't need it. It doesn't save me time to do it because I can ice it just fine without it. So especially when you're learning, a crumb coat is a great way to practice icing because you're icing every cake twice. And also to make sure you're not getting crumbs in that cake. You can go a lot faster and you don't have to worry about that as much. So a crumb coat is a great way. Crumb coat, for those who don't know, is when you ice the cake, you want to do a thin coat of icing. You ice it and then you stick it in the freezer or the refrigerator, let it get cold and hard, and then you can ice over it for your final like pretty coat. Now I will give you guys another trick. If I'm icing a cake in a really dark saturated color like black, I will ice it in white first, crumb coat, and then do a really thin layer of black over the top, so I don't have a lot of that black icing when people go to eat the cake. All right. Smooth this guy up on the top. Just trying to go quickly here for you guys so that we can get to the stacking part. Alright, so we just want to make sure, another important thing when you're stacking a cake is you want to make sure that your top and your bottom of your cake are very level and flat. So the bottom is going to be flat because it's on a flat board, the bottom of each tier. The top is going to be flat because you're going to ice it beautifully. And then we will talk about the structural support. Alright, let me get this next one. I'm going to pop this in the freezer. Alright, so again, I have my mess board. We're going to do a tiny bit of glue on there. Buttercream is my glue. And then I have my little guy up here. And these have all been brushed with simple syrup, so they're nice and moist. Don't have to worry about my cake being dry. Alright, let's see if we've got more comments on here. What do you do if your buttercream gets a bubble on the side after you smooth the side? I love it. If my icing gets a bubble, which I talked about a little bit how bubbles happen at the beginning of this video. If you get a bubble, there's a few different things that you can do. One, you can take a knife or an angled spatula and you can literally like cut that ball out and re-ice that spot. If the icing is not sticking back to the cake, that's what you'll have to do. But before you jump into such an aggressive decision to cut a hole in the side of your cake like that, I usually like to, especially if my icing is so cold, like if it's cold you can push on it and see if it's going to go back in. If it's going to go back in, you can cut like a little slit, almost like an incision, and deflate it while it's cold. Otherwise, yes, you will have to pull that chunk of icing off and re-ice the cake, which is totally fine. It happens to everybody, but it's not fun when it happens. High ratio icing, yes, we use high ratio shortening. It is much better for buttercream because it's not going to give your mouth that gross Crisco-y shortening, like coated Krispy Kreme donut coating on your mouth. Sorry if you like Krispy Kreme donuts. Alright, so I started to pull some crumbs here, so I'm just going to pop those off. Not a problem. And ice right back over it. So this is my top tier. I've got a 3-tier cake here, and I have another 3-tier cake that I already iced that's in the freezer, so I can show you guys without having to wait forever for the cake to get hard. You want it to sit in the freezer for probably 15 minutes, but you want it to get nice and firm. That butter in the icing is going to get cold and hard, and that's what you're looking for. Alright, let's smooth the sides of this guy. Got a little piece of shortening in here. Alright, what other questions do you guys have before we get to the stacking part around the icing and buttercream? Why don't you use a bag to ice a whole cake? I totally could. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just personal preference. I feel like this is a lot faster. I don't have to spend the time refilling the bag. Also, when you ice with a bag, you get a very thin layer of icing. And if I do it this way, I can get however thick icing I want. The benefit to that is I don't have to worry about it being so thin, the icing being so thin. Sorry. I don't have to worry about the icing being so thin that I can see the cake through it, right? You don't want it to be transparent, unless that is the look you're going for. Alright, so I got this rough ice here. So there's nothing wrong with using a bag to ice the cake. A lot of places do it, a lot of people do it. That's just not how we do it here. I recommend trying it different ways, seeing what works for you. icing it with the bag is a lot easier to get the exact same amount of icing on every piece of your cake. But it also makes for a lot thinner icing. So it just depends on the cake if that's a problem or a benefit. Alright, we're doing our spatula marks here. So, angle. There we go. Man, I really want to make these straight up and down. There we go. Okay. Then we can smooth our top. Alright, so we have a nice smooth top on here. The top of the other cakes isn't really going to show because the other cakes are going to sit on top of them, of the lower tiers, but this guy is the top of my wedding cake, so I want to make sure she's really pretty. Usually we'll have monogram topper or topper of some kind and fresh flowers on top, but I want to make everything beautiful. Alright, I'm going to pop her in the freezer. What we're going to do now is I'm going to grab the other cake that I iced, so it's already cold. It's a different decoration on the sides, but that doesn't matter for what we're doing. And we are going to put support in it, and then I'll show you guys how to stack it. Cool. Let me grab that cake for you. Alright, so this is another trendy wedding cake. This is a semi-naked cake. So basically a clean crumb coat. You don't want a ton of crumbs, but some crumbs are acceptable. What you do want is to see the cake through the icing. So that transparent tier like we were talking about. What we're going to do is create the support to hold the weight of all the upper tiers. So you can have a 7-tier, which we've done more than once, a 7-tier wedding cake, and you don't have to worry about the weight of all those tiers coming down. It will hold, the support will hold your tiers straight and hold the weight of them. Let me see these comments real quick. Did you get it to move? Okay, I will definitely show you guys how to move the cake onto the larger board. So, what we're going to do here is we use dowel rods. And I definitely forgot to check what size they are. I totally forget. I will post that on in the comments after the live for you guys. So we use dowel rods as our support. The reason for this is because they can handle any weight. Here's my little clippers. Hey Ashley, can I have the clippers? Yes. Thank you. So we will use wooden dowel rods. We have these floral leverage clippers. We'll need a pencil, and that is it. So what we're going to do is, our rule of thumb is however big the inches, however big the cake is that it's sitting on, that's how many of these sticks you want in there. So this guy, where's my pencil? This cake is a 5, 7, 10 inch. I got one, thank you. So we are going to put this cake that sits on top of here is a 7 inch. So we're going to put 7 dowel rods in this cake. So what we're going to do is put the first one in, and I'm pushing it straight down. Straight up and down is really important. Even though it looks crooked in the video, it's not. Straight up and down and all the way down to the board. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to mark it completely flush, perfectly flush with that buttercream. So that all those dowel rods sit right in that buttercream. Use my apron to wipe off the cake. And I have this mark on here. So I'm going to take my clippers and clip that straight. That's one. So I'm going to use this guy as my ruler. What is more important than them all being level on this cake is that they're all level to each other. My cake could easily be iced uneven. You want all of these to be exactly the same size to each other. So I'm gonna lay them flush and make a mark. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then we're just going to cut all of these guys. Now there's a lot of different things that you can use for your structure. You can use the boba tea straws, you can get plastic, or even paper dowel rods. I have not found one that has not worked for a 2-tier cake, or probably even a 3-tier cake. But when you get a lot of weight from 300 servings of your pumpkin cake, you want to have something that is going to hold that weight a little bit more securely, and that would be the wooden ones. Alright, so I have my 7 all cut. Now what I'm going to do is I want to make sure there's none of the little flecks of wood. I'm just going to knock them on the table and then rub them, both sides of them, on my apron. And that makes sure if I have any little wooden splintery bits that they're not on there, and I have none. If I had, what do you need? Oh, you can go behind me. You can show off your cake, yeah. Ashley's going to bring a cake around to the photo booth back here, so you're going to see her beautiful cake. So then you want to check them on the table and make sure they are all perfectly level. Beautiful. Thank you. So once they're on the table and they're level, you can see that all of them are level, right? So then we can put them in the cake, and it does not matter if one sticks up higher than the others, because you know they are perfectly level. And you want to spread them out as wide as you can for that size cake. So if I have a 7-inch, I don't want to go into, make them 8 inches apart. But if my cake is iced level, then they're all going to be level, just like this. So, super simple, very easy. Really important that everything goes straight up and down and that everything is level. If your cake was iced wavy or wonky, that's totally fine. You could add a little bit of icing to it and level it out, not a problem, super easy. Now, let's grab that next here and I will show you guys how to stack a cake. I'll want a clean spatula, and I will want my buttercream bag. Alright, I'm going to grab that cake for you. Okay, so I have my cake on my board here. I'll move you off to the side. It's on my mess board, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spatula and stick it underneath that board and twist, and it pops that glue, that little piece of buttercream I had under there, off, and I have my cake. Super easy. I'm going to do a little bit of buttercream on top here. Again, buttercream is glue, so just a little bit, doesn't need much. If I have a back to my cake, that's probably going to be my back. I'm going to line up all the backs of the cakes so you can decide. And this cake is cold, so I can touch it. I can make sure it's perfectly centered. Which my eyes deceive me. And then I can push it down, straight down on top, and make sure that it is attached, that that glue has attached well. And that is it, you guys. So easy to stack a cake. So then I'll have this guy with this icing on it. I can just scrape this icing off, wipe it off, reuse these guys. So every time I ice a cake and stack a cake, I have some mess boards to use. Alright, so we're going to dowel rod the top of this guy. Same thing. The next cake that goes on top is a 5-inch, so I need 5 dowel rods for support here. And we're just going to go straight up and down. Use my pencil to make it perfectly level with the buttercream. Where your pencil mark is does matter. You don't want it to be below the buttercream, and you do not want it to be above the buttercream. If it's above the buttercream up here, then what will happen is your cake won't really set. It will be loose, and so those tears will want to pop off. If it's below it, then as the cake gets warm, it'll start to smash in to those other tiers. So your pencil mark is very important. So we have our first one, and we're going to make all of them exactly the same. If I have really tall tiers, we do the exact same thing. If I have a very tall, narrow cake, then you can actually leave all the center ones out and take one big center one and drive it through the entire cake to add for extra support. We do that a lot on like really tall tiers or sculpted cakes that are just a little bit more top heavy. Well, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so we're just going to cut these guys. And the exact same thing. I got more than I need. I have 6. That's fine. I'm going to hit both sides. I'm going to wipe it aggressively on my apron. Both sides to make sure I don't have any little loose bits. I'm going to check them and make sure they are perfectly even. They are beautiful and even. So push them right in. Straight up and down. If you go on an angle, then it doesn't support anything. Right? If your dowel rods are on an angle and the weight comes down, it will just push it and make it worse. So your dowel rods have to go straight in. When you are serving a cake that is stacked like this, I see those comments coming in and I will scroll back and get to you, I promise. When you are serving a cake like this, the easiest thing to do is to just start with the top tier, cut it, serve it, pull the plate off, pull these guys out, do the next one. But you can stick a spatula underneath and separate each tier if you want as well. Alright, glue. And let me grab that last tier. Alright, so I got my tier. I'm going to stick this underneath and turn it. Just twist that handle and it pops right off. Find my back. Every cake has a back. A little ugly spot or an uneven spot or that seam where you finished the icing. It's totally fine. Alright, I've got a beautiful big cake here. Alright, so now finishing it. We're not done. Taking these guys off. What we're going to do next is I'm going to put a small round tip on my bag. And we're going to cover up the seam, the board, where it you have a little bit of a gap, where it doesn't meet perfectly. I'm just going to really roughly pipe a big line around here to fill it in. And then while it's cold, so these are all cold, I can take my finger and smooth it. And it just pushes that icing into that crack. So you have a nice, smooth, finished seam. You don't see your board. You don't have a messy spot. You don't have holes. It's a really easy way. The cake has to be cold. But it's a really easy way to just finish off that cake. So some cakes get borders. This one does not. Let me double check my order to make sure. This one does not. So I'm going to stick this guy off to the side very carefully. And I'm going to check out your guys' comments and answer any questions that you have. And we will go from there. Let's see. I'm going to show you guys another cake too. After you pull these out of the freezer, how much time do you have to work with them before the icing starts getting soft? Excellent question. It depends entirely on the temperature of the room, how thick your buttercream is. I would say that depending on what you need to do, you have plenty of time. Generally, I don't know, I feel like 10-15 minutes is more than enough time to stack a tier. I've never felt like it was not enough time unless I walked away from it and then came back. I hope that answers. let's see, do you ever put the center dowel rod uncut through all the tiers of the whole cake? Yes, so you can do a, what's it called? A dowel rod through the entire cake. You want to stick it in like an electric pencil sharpener so that it, what was I going to say? So that it's sharp on the end, so it'll go through all those boards in between everybody. Yes, Ashley's cake was gorgeous. Okay, I think I got all of these. Let me go to the bottom. Interesting. Dowel rod sticks are flush. Yes. So a good cutter is going to make a big difference for that. Awesome, you guys. What buttercream is best to use? Excellent question. So for buttercream, we use an American buttercream here. It is non-crusting. I just wanted to show you guys this cake too. I think I've showed this in other videos. Same structure for support in this cake. Okay, the only difference is that it has a steel rod that's threaded going through the middle. It's coated and covered. But what happens is each tier has a board at the bottom. What would be the top is now the bottom. And it goes on the threaded pole, and then a bolt gets locked in at the bottom to hold that tier in place. And then the next one gets put on, and then the next one. And they each have a bolt underneath them to hold them in place. So exact same structure, just different tools. But yeah, very cool. Awesome. You can stack anything. Let's see, stacking always seems scary. You don't want it to crash. Of course not. The cool thing about that is I gave you plenty of tips and tricks on how to stack safely. And really, if everything is even, then you don't have to worry about it crashing. It can be super warm. The cake will be perfectly fine. So your first cake may not go great. I don't know. I have been very fortunate in that none of my cakes have ever fallen. And I have talked to a ton of decorators whose first cake fell and they learned why and never happened again. So maybe make sure your first cake isn't someone's wedding. But other than that, just practice, play, have fun. It's just cake. It's still going to taste great. Upside down cake. I see comments. Are the upside down cakes common for weddings? No, definitely not common. This one in particular was for a photo shoot that we did in Bloomington. We've done 2 real ones and we have orders for 2 more. So we're definitely going to go ahead and brag on those a little bit when they happen. But we have a very cool one for August 1st that I cannot wait for. That cake is going to be insanely gorgeous. So I'm super excited for that one. Upside down cakes. Upside down cakes do not cost more. So if this was right side up, we add on a delivery charge that is extra because of the amount of time it takes for us to arrange and deliver. So there's an extra fee for that, but the decoration of the cake itself is not more. It just depends what designs they get on the top. Can you make and freeze in advance? Aretha, can you make and freeze in advance? Can you specify, can you clarify what you mean by that? Are you talking about freezing the upside down cake or just any cake? Sorry, I don't know if we went off topic here. What other questions you guys have? I have a few more minutes to hang out with you. Let's take a look at some other cakes. I love this one in particular. Let's just brag on this one. Just hand painted, something super fun, whimsical. We call her Alice. And here is the Julia, which is one of the cakes that we did. She's been sitting around for a little while, so she's a little old and has lots of greenery. You can see these angled spatula marks here. So very cool. The cake. You can totally stack and freeze it in advance. We do not freeze our cakes here because it does dry out. There's no way to keep a frozen cake from drying out. It affects the cellular structure when things freeze. The liquid in them expands as they freeze, and then when that goes back down to a liquid, you break that cell structure, so things are just going to dry out. So I don't recommend freezing cake. Except for decorating purposes like stacking or making stencils, but you definitely can. A lot of places do it. It is perfectly fine. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Megan Ritz with Classic Cakes on Tutorial Tuesdays. Please jump over to Google real quick and leave us a review. Let us know how you like the videos, what you're looking for, what else you want to see. If you've had our cake before, how you like your cake. Any reviews are just super helpful right now. Thank you guys so much. I had so much fun with you guys tonight. I'm super excited for next week. We've got another whole month planned in July, and we're just going to keep going with these as long as you guys are interested in watching. We will keep making videos. Thank you guys. Bye.